What's happening, everyone? Pragmatic Addict here. I'm here with Jacob from JTJ Reviews. So we are sitting down talking about Beavis and Butt-Head episode 4. Now, before I start this review, the background, we are out of town again. We were visiting Jacob's family, so we stopped along the way because we knew that the Beavis and Butt-Head episode was going to be dropping. We've been driving for a couple days, so it was nice to recuperate and, crank out a video and everything. But this episode, so before I went into this one, I had a lot of thoughts. So I saw the thumbnail and I saw the title called Hellhole, and I didn't really know what to expect. I was just like, oh, okay, so this is the sewer episode that was being teased in the trailer. But Paramount Plus actually dropped a teaser for this episode on their channel on YouTube. So basically what we got out of that 1 minute teaser is that somehow the boys were gonna fall down a sewer and think that they were dead, and in hell it shows them looking at a sign that says Department of Sanitation, where they misread it for Apartment of Satan.
Wait a second. Here's some words. Beavis, this is the Apartment of Satan. Do you know what this means? No. We have died. And this is hell.
Which I noticed instantly was kind of like a callback to the Beavis and Butt-Head Do America video, for example, the movie, where he's in the plane and he reads Master Station. He thinks it says masturbation. I was just like, classic Butthead.
Masturbation.
But yes, I had a lot of thoughts going into this one. I couldn't wait to see it just based off of what we got from the sneak peek. So let's talk about Hellhole. So basically, how this episode starts out, I almost loved it immediately because, so basically the episode starts off, we see Beavis and Butt-Head walking in the middle of the street. There's cars honking at them, and we soon realize that they're actually looking up where a jet was writing a message in smoke, and it spells out so far Festival of BOO, and they think it's going to eventually lead to Festival of Boobs, which it's actually Festival of Books. But they're basically following this in the middle of the street looking up, and eventually they fall into an open sewer, which leads us into them waking up underground in this smelly ass shithole, thinking that they're in hell.
The second I saw this episode, I was like, at first, okay, this is gonna be fun. And then there's this scene, I don't want to give too much away, but they literally do their classic antics of trying to get to the hot ladies, and
oh yeah, don't worry, we'll talk about that. yeah, as for me, I'm like, look, these things are like 10 minutes long, I'm gonna spill the beans. But before we get into that, I want to talk about the cutaway that came up. So the cutaway, I have thoughts on it where this cutaway, it didn't move me or anything, it wasn't like a highlight, but I felt this weird nostalgic feel where I was like, okay, this feels like the older versions of Beavis and Butt-Head where they're just talking nonsense about a cutaway that, like a music video that seems enough that they would be talking about. Not like the Lil Nas X one that we got recently, but this Ariana Grande one where they claim, oh yeah, this is the one where she's trying to cure cancer and then she ends up making Frankenslut. I thought that was fine. I got it. Based off the stuff they were saying, it didn't really hit me in that thing where it was quite my humor, but I got it for what it was. And I respected it as feeling enough of like a Beavis and Butt-Head cutaway, just kind of like a throwaway thing.
I just like how they're just, I don't want to give too much away about this cutaway, but like they literally are saying, oh, she made this lab to cure cancer, but she decided to make slut clones instead. And I'm like, classic Beavis and Butt-Head.
Yeah, definitely. It was one of those things where I was like, again, I was fine with it. I was just kind of sitting along for the ride. I was like, I get where they're going for. It feels classic enough, but it just, and this goes on for, this is, I'm going to talk about this later on with episode 4-2 and just the overall thing of the season. It just felt kind of lazy. The season overall, it just feels a little bit tired. It doesn't feel as creative. It doesn't feel like they're taking full advantage of that creative freedom that I was kind of hoping that they would with this season. But going on with this episode, it was just one of those episodes where it was morbid and dark enough And the atmosphere, I really praised the atmosphere, just, with them being in this fucking sewer of all places, being in a sewer, thinking that they're in hell. I had a lot of thoughts of how is this going to play out and everything. And basically what ends up happening is that they start questioning things. Well, where are all the dead people? Where are all the people that scored with chicks and should be here? Where are all the demons with red tits? Basically, what they end up thinking is that they're in the surface level of hell, and they need to get deeper to get to all the cooler shit. So, here's what I will say about this episode. For as much as I liked where it was going, and I liked some of the things that they did, I did think a lot of the stuff came off a bit forced, where they end up finding this jackhammer, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Obviously, this open sewer, it's where construction workers are working on, and, they find this jack, and they're like, well, let's drill deeper so we can go down again to the deeper depths of hell. They end up coming across a gas pipe and end up bursting it, where all the lights in the sewer and everything, it all shuts off, where we get this cutaway now where it's all pitch black and they're thinking that they're scoring, that they've come across the demon women and that they're filling them up, and it ends up that they're touching themselves and shit. It was just stuff like that where I'm like, okay, I get it, I guess, but let's be real, this is not as strong as we could have gotten in an episode like this in this time.
I thought it was funny at first when the fire and all that.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, I get it, but is it as strong? Are they really taking advantage of that creative freedom? No, it just felt kind of lazy. It just felt not nearly as strong as it could have or should have been.
It seems like this whole season just feels like they're just like, once in a while, something good, bad, good. Yeah,
exactly. Like, I'll say this. The revival from 2022, I feel like that was necessary because, this idea for Beavis and Butt-Head Do the Universe, all those episodes they had for the first season of this revival, it felt like that's what they had. And don't get me wrong, that season was good. It was that good shit where they were like, okay, look, this is good. This could work for the revival. This will reel people in. But it feels like all this stuff was just like the back burner shit where they're like, well, we have enough to make for a season 2. But it's all their weaker episodes. But what I was actually surprised about was all the references to heaven and like angels and stuff. Like, basically what ends up happening is we see this silhouette that's a reference to like an angel coming down from heaven, but it's a construction worker coming out from the top of the sewer to rescue them, and they basically, it wraps up with them thinking that they got put into heaven and they're disappointed. So it kind of wrapped up where I was like, it's fine, I guess. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it, it's just not as strong. It was just one of those episodes where I was like, yeah, it's okay. It's, I'd give it an overall positive review just because I feel like it's not really great, it's not really bad, it's just kind of like, yeah, it's fine for what it is.
Yeah, quite frankly, this whole episode, there was a part that really made me laugh, like really chuckle, but like, if I had to rate this video or this episode, I'm gonna give it a 3.4.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this was in the middle, but it was more toward that better than not level, just because I liked all the references. I liked the overall atmosphere. It just could have been so much better. And that's what I'm noticing with a lot of the episodes in this season, is that there's a lot of good potential. There's a lot of good premises. But I'm just like, if the writing was on par as last year's season revival, it would be good. It would be fine. That has the potential, but they're just not taking full advantage of what they need to. Now, going into episode 4-2, this one is Take a Bow. Now, right from the get-go, I was like, is this going to be the married one? Where they get married because of the title? But what I was pleasantly surprised by, in this episode, this is probably the most jam-packed, most convoluted episode as far as thoughts-wise that I've gotten into this whole season. There's a lot to take from this episode, so let's just get to it. So basically, Take a Bow is a reference to Butthead, what he says to Beavis when he hits him in the balls. Now, how this episode starts off, we see the boys going into a hospital with Beavis holding his nuts, and instantly, this made me think of the old classic episode where Beavis's ass is all fucked up and everything, and we're just like, what the hell happened to your butt, kid?
This young man presenting in the ER with third-degree cremation of the buttocks, cauterized sphincter, and severely inflamed rectal cavity. Can anyone here tell me what could have possibly caused this?
Now that's an instant thought that I had, is like, what happened to Beavis's nads? What fucking happened? Basically, they walk into a hospital, and the nurse asks, or the person at the front desk asks Butthead, well, how long has he been feeling like this? And Butthead goes, oh, not too long. And then we get a jump cut of 10 days earlier. Which I will say, it wasn't anything special. That's what I mean. Like, there's a lot of good potential in these episodes where you're like, oh boy, where are they gonna go? And then it just goes somewhere so bare minimum. Where, again, it's not anything special, it's just Butthead saying, take a bow, Beavis. With him hitting him in the nuts because of Beavis doing something, I guess, impressive enough. It was just one of those things where I'm like, oh, okay, well, you set up this kind of punch line, and it goes nowhere. It just kind of goes down the drain. But what I do want to talk about, and this is just a special thing for me, this just hit me home. The cutaway here. So they're actually watching a guy drinking all the different flavors of Mountain Dew. Now, I'm a Mountain Dew enthusiast through and through. I mean, even the fruit quake, I will try that bad boy. If I find out that there is an exclusive Mountain Dew flavor that's like, I don't know, pina colada sauerkraut, and it's in fucking the butthole of Kansas, I'm taking that trip to try that Mountain Dew. I'm not gonna say too much about this cutaway, except they're commenting on this guy trying all the flavors in this gigantic, like, wine glass and chugging it, and all I'm gonna say is that Beavis, in this cutaway, it's just more reason why he is my spirit animal.
I've been asking for this for years. Finally, someone has the guts to do it, you know? I mean, Maui Burst, Livewire, Spark, Code Red, Original, Frostbite, Voltage, and Violet, which they only have in Japan.
Now, this is where things get very interesting, because there was like 3 different times in this episode where I was like, okay, is that the ending? And this is the first one where we actually see Beavis in a hospital bed. This hit me very hard. It was a very sweet spot. It tugged at my heartstrings and everything, where we actually see Beavis sitting in a hospital bed, and he wakes up, and he's like, Butthead, you're not gonna hit me in the nuts? And Beavis is like, and Butthead's is like, no, not until you're better, Beavis. Are you better? And so from there, I was like, aw, okay, that was kind of sweet. But from there, we actually see another guy in the hospital, like on one of those separate parts behind the sheet. Butthead says something that brings up that guy to confront Butthead, and Butthead gets an argument with him, and how that scene ends is Butthead looks back and Beavis is basically dead. This is something that I think is going to go down in history for Beavis and Butthead as far as what we've seen. This is going to be like a new thing. Well, I don't know if I'd say a new thing, because there was something in Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe where I saw emotions from Beavis where he was sad, and then I saw some emotions even in the past revival where I was like, wow, we haven't seen that from Beavis or Butthead. And this continues that down that line where we actually see Butthead just get fucking sad. He's sulking and walking down the hospital hallways, just basically being remorseful and basically in disbelief and in shock, like, I can't believe I killed Beavis. I mean, yeah, it was funny hitting him in the nuts and all, but I mean, he still had so many years left to live to get hit in the nuts. Butthead eventually finds this chapel, which I think is a little bit random. He finds this chapel, and he ends up, like, praying to God, you know, asking for Beavis, you know, for God to give him Beavis back. And, like, just showing Butthead, you know, asking for forgiveness and all this stuff, which that's where I thought the episode might have wrapped up. But then we actually get, I guess, like, an afterlife sequence where, like, Beavis is, like, now dead. And we get that famous Kraken scene that we were teased with in the trailer. And I'm like, okay, that whole Butthead sequence totally won the fucking episode for me already. But now we're getting this. One of the most anticipated scenes of this whole season that I was looking forward to. All I'm gonna say is that how this makes sense and how it plays into the eventual, like, where the episode leads, I dug it. And it even gave me a sort of Evil Dead reference. You know exactly what I'm talking about, where I'm just like, oh, they went there. And even Beavis is, like, talking about it once he's revived and everything. Yeah, basically how this ends up finally concluding, because I was like, well, is the Butthead thing going to be the ending? Oh, nope. Is the Kraken scene going to be the ending? Oh, nope. But what I respected about this episode is that there was so much variety. There was so much up and down, and those ups were really ups. So we're like, you know, things for the books, for, like, history of Beavis and Butthead, like, what we've seen out of them. And overall, it just, like, well, it was very up and down and very all over the place and just, again, very mixed and it just felt very jam-packed. It was an overall win for me.
I thought it was a pretty emotional episode in some ways.
There were times where we had to pause and we were like, I'm not ready to see this out of Butt-Head. We're never ready for that because he's just such an asshole.
He finally gives emotion.
Yeah,
like, I haven't seen...
that was like with the movie Do the Universe, and even the past season, we saw things out of Beavis where I was just like, what's going on here? What is this? What am I feeling?
Yeah, it's like, are they finally sort of growing up as characters?
Yeah, and while you wouldn't expect that, or maybe even think that it would work or feel right, that's kind of like what I'm hoping for, is to see some difference, see some growth, see some new takes that like and challenges and sides of them, just to see how they'll deal with it. So I mean, overall, like, yeah, just as an overall episode, this one, you know, this one just took me by surprise. But yes, guys, that is going to do for episode 4. I was so happy we were able to kind of kick back and, you know, dive into this when we could. I don't know how many videos we're going to get to throughout the week. We are up here for a few days and everything. And overall, just in May, I feel like May is going to be a very Beavis and Butt-Head month. There's like one movie I'm remotely looking forward to that we'll get into that later on. Aside from that, guys, this is going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the episode as well. Let me know your thoughts down below, guys. Take care.